Right, so the last part of the three is customer experience without limits. So crossing borders, quite literally, as you'll see from the demo. So we're looking at the potential of AI now. How can we really use AI in our, not just future, but kind of right now. So let's have a look at a few examples. So it can help with 24/7 instant responses. So although we like to work hard, we can't all be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. It's just not practicable. However, the consumer expectation is that really. And I think over the pandemic era, where people have been at home more, the kind of hours at which they expect to transact have kind of blurred. And lots of people are doing their grocery shopping at night, making it really difficult actually for the anti-fraud detection that banks carry out, just because transactions are going on all around the clock. So here's an example from government that I give you. So it's something called Companies House. It's a government service. So if you are, for example, trying to dissolve a small company or you filed your accounts, you want to know if you're going to be fined because you filed late, again, you can automate all of that. And because those are relatively complex questions, those are done through a voice chatbot, a bit like our banking example that we had earlier on. So the next one is enhanced scalability. So again, you might have 1,000 people in your contact center, but you've got a big avalanche of people needing information. So again, only automation can save you there. We had a situation last year, another government customer for effectively unemployment benefit. Lots of people suddenly lost their jobs. They needed to get at this service called Universal Credit. And we had 50 times the normal traffic. So instead of our normal queue of about 200, we had a queue with 10,000 people in it, all waiting to get information about benefits. The customer first asked us, could we increase the size of the queue? We said, actually, no, you haven't increased the size of your workforce, so there's no point leaving people to wait for hours on end. You need to automate, so you need to use intelligent automation to really thin out those queues. Next one is routing intelligently. So again, example from the COVID era, early pandemic, big healthcare service that we run. Again, it's a government one. We found 14 times traffic coming in, not enough health advisors and clinicians to deal with all of that. Most of those early pandemic callers were calling about trying to get a COVID test. So what we did was we intelligently automated all of those people into an online service, and then that kind of lowered the water level so we could see all the people who didn't want a COVID test and routing them intelligently. And then another example from healthcare for streamlining the service experience is what I mentioned, a new service we're launching today. It's another healthcare service. It goes live today. We got the final clinical sign-off yesterday. It is using natural language processing, artificial intelligence to demographically capture each caller patient. So we'll find out who they are. We open a new clinical record that references their existing clinical records. We present that with the call to the health advisor, and they can get straight on with the transaction. So we're taking out over a minute of every one of those calls, which typically lasts for about 10 minutes. So 10% saving right there is highly significant. And then the next one we're going to look at is improved efficiency. So efficiency, let's look at, for example, data insights, call recordings. So if we are looking at not just call recordings, but people who are calling, maybe they're a repeat caller, we want to know why are you calling twice. So let's analyze that using AI, and then we can offer new service paths for them. And then boosting the agent experience. Let's not forget the agent in all of this machine talk. So we want to cut down on agent churn. So we do that by providing them with a more satisfying experience. So we think back to our voice chatbot earlier in the demo, that voice chatbot all was hinged upon a very mundane transaction. You've lost your card, you want a new one. That's really boring for the advisors. So by automating that, and maybe handing on at the end, as we saw in some of these demos, to the human agent, then we're making that work fit for humans. So the potential of AI is really enormous. So let's see if I can go on. CX without limits. So that 24/7 aspect, vitally important. And then what we're going to look at next, crossing time zones and language barriers. So this is our final short demo for you. It's a situation I often face where someone needs to talk to me in Japanese and I don't speak Japanese. So that now needn't be a barrier with AI-powered simultaneous translation. So I'm going to talk you through this travel sector example. So it's only a very short one. So here we've got the agent logging on. They're an English-speaking agent. So logging in, and they're being served a Japanese-speaking consumer. So you notice there on the right, the agent is speaking English, and we've on the left, clearly because of the script, that's Japanese. So the Japanese-speaking customer wants to change the date of their flight. It's translated into English for the English-speaking customer service agent to handle that. Customers providing their flight details there, you can see the flight number. The agent's requesting the booking reference, and the agent's also going to request the date they want to move the flight to. So there we are, they want to move it into May the 24th. The agent changes the flight details, they confirm that with the customer, and they're going to then tell them that there'll be an email on its way to kind of close out the transaction. So we've had a human interaction, but we've been using this machine agent to help power it.
Our organization has resisted contact center automation because we believe it poses a threat to jobs, as we saw from the post early on. You say that chatbots and humans can work together, but will this still be the case in 5 years' time after AI has developed even further?
Yeah, that's a great question. And people do worry about this. I would point out that no technology has ever created unemployment. Other than in the very shortest term, which is why the 5-year window is interesting. All that technology has ever done is increase human productivity, from that kind of horse example to the steam-driven machines to AI. So it's going to unlock, by freeing us from some of the lower level cognitive work, unlock real creative and output potential in humans. So I don't really worry about that. Yeah, there may be definitely some retooling, some reskilling is going to need to go on. But I sat last time we did this event in Singapore. I sat at a table of 8, and 3 people were chatbot trainers for their job. So it's creating new jobs, probably at a faster and certainly more exciting rate than some of the old ones.
I think you're absolutely right. It also, I think, helps us to really think of how can we sort of use our resources in a more purposeful, meaningful way, and not have people just spend too much time in some routine work and have them focus more on creative work. Just do one more quick one. If we implement AI, how can we be sure that our data security and compliance are not compromised in the process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, security is so important. Firstly, it's about reducing down the blocks of information so that what the AI is processing is not a complete transaction, it's little bits of it. So these are some words that mean a date of birth, but it collectively, there's nothing to identify that it's a date of birth or whose date of birth it is. We keep all these elements separate, we bring them together in the service experience. The other part of it is obviously externally measured security. So things like Cyber Essentials Plus, penetration testing, SOC 2, that's some very tough standards. The basic one, of course, ISO 27001.
Yep.
So really all of these security standards go with someone that's got all of those. They're really hard to do. And these guys are on your case 24/7 with your information security people. So let your provider make sure they've done all of those hard yards. Don't just fall for a bit of sales patter and a smart looking demo, but there's more to it than that.